Hello and welcome everybody to the Chia Cloud Wallet early release AMA, kind of a Q&A to learn about the new Chia Cloud Wallet. We have Gene here and we are live streaming on YouTube. If anybody has questions throughout the event, please do use the Zoom Q&A. We'll also be checking in on the Discord community feedback channel, as well as trying to track the YouTube questions also. So, Gene, let's hear from you at a high level. What is the Chia Cloud Wallet and what does it do for users?
Well, it's not just the Chia Cloud Wallet, it's also Vaults, and it's the combination of the two that is a game changer to how you self-custody. The issue to date has been that, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana are just really hard to actually securely store and frankly defend from yourself. I mean, you forget stuff, things rot, you have a house fire. The solutions there were things like, oh, let's like take metal and stamp it, and this is just not a user-friendly kind of thing. And so what Cloud Wallet really does is it says, look, let's take some of the most painful things like being in sync with a decentralized network. Let's change how custody works with vaults. Let's make it so that you have real control and can really choose a mix of how you want to do that. Some wallets you might want a like 30-day recovery period. And in fact, a conversation last night with one of the Bitcoin crossover folks that we love dearly, having a 90-day recovery clawback key that you literally type into your will is just a superior solution to so many things. And like if somebody got your will and tried to steal your money, you've got 90 days of warning from the Watchtower and Cloud Wallet telling you, hey, it's being recovered. Do you want to stop it? And all you have to do is log in and sign and stop it. So it just really totally changes how you think about custody, and it's this release is both a lot of work and not a lot of features yet because it took so much to get to the MVP. But now that we have, and we knew what we were trying to build kind of globally, it really now lets us iterate much quicker on adding things like you'll see NFTs soon. But then you really get into like multi-vault, multi-sig on a single vault, multiple recovery keys. One of those recovery keys can be an institution. It can literally be like your local bank. And so we just open up a tremendous new Turing complete, for those of you who know what I mean, ability to define what your custody rules are and use them really simply. It's, do you have a web browser? Do you have a supported mobile phone? And Android coming, don't worry.
Absolutely. Very exciting for sure. And I know messing around with the Chia Signer app has been a lot of fun for me. And it's kind of cool to be able to see what the world's going to be like when I don't have to remember 24 words anymore or have noted down somewhere.
Yep. Well, and now 24 words are a recovery key. It's like, yeah, you might want a copy of them. And as long as you set that window long enough, and we went with what I think is the minimum window, which is 12 hours. And the reason we chose that was, if somebody tries to time stealing your stuff right when you go to sleep, you're likely to wake up before that 12-hour window is over. If you take a lot of international flights, usually you're back to your email. I will say in the modern era, because I do this a lot, we're about that place where your email is going to work anyway. Now, granted, if you're still doing the like San Francisco, Singapore flight, sometimes it don't work great. But point being, like in the Starlink era, I don't think people have to worry about being away. And coming features is, and though you can do it a kind of clunky way today, is hey, let's change my recovery key to be a week because I know I'm going to be away for a while. And when I get back, I'll change it back to being 12 hours. Like that's again the kind of stuff you can do that you've kind of never been able to do before, and have the chain enforce it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very exciting for sure. And now I know one of the thoughts in the back of people's minds right now is we're talking a lot about self custody, but the Chia Cloud Wallet is a cloud based service. How do those two things mesh?
So the key is that we don't have your keys, and we never will. What we have is either your public key, so that we know if you're, for example, using a YubiKey or a passkey as your signing key, that yes, that was your private key that we've challenged and you signed it, and we can validate that. But it allows us to build a really user-friendly, globally available infrastructure that is especially tailored at more of what I would call banks and financial institution use cases. You know, for an individual, and this is why the individual free tier is free, you don't need like vaults of vaults. You don't need like, for example, for us, we're going to need vaults of vaults where, our CFO has a vault, I have a vault, Bram has a vault. Some of our spends require two of us. Some of our spends might require three of five. And being able to have all that be super easy and have it like pushed at you over a push notification because it's like, oh yeah, we need to like refill the ACH faucet this morning. Got it. Click. Pops up on my phone, sign after reviewing and actually using the phone's UI to see what I'm signing, sign. So, it's those kinds of things that the cloud wallet really enables. And, one thing I would say, there's definitely some trade-offs. And one of the trade-offs I want to be very clear about as a privacy and security company, we know more about you than we do if you're using our downloadable or you're using Sage Wallet, right? And so for some people, there may be good reasons, either where they live or how their local laws work, that they would rather, self-custody all this. And slowly but surely, vaults and the ability to use Chia Signer are going to be available off the cloud platform. We've designed it so that even if we disappear, you can still access your funds, recover your funds, spend your funds. Passkeys make that a little harder. In other words, passkeys are kind of encoded to chia.net. But even there, you're going to have your recovery keys so that you could recover it, put in a new passkey from a different website, and move forward with your funds. But it really is all of the coordination because, like, if you've got 5 or 6 people and you need two of them to sign, it's really nice to have a robot in the middle going, "Hey, everybody, I need somebody to sign this," and then going, "Okay, two of you are in. That's all I need to have a nice day." It's being able to do that really easily and also make it so that like people who aren't like heavily trusted, the controller who doesn't have signing authority can go out and just go to the website and say, "Hey, I need this signed. Here's what it is." Push it to the people that you need it signed, and it just works. Now, a lot of that stuff is not yet in public. We're testing all that stuff for Permuto in private already, but that is the really killer case is making all the orchestration of your day to day minting assets. In Permuto, it's like, oh, we need a 10,000 more Microsoft dividend certificate and 10,000 more Microsoft asset certificate. The other certificates are already there at U.S. Bank. Boom, press a button and it just works. Boom, press a button and we sign to secure the bag that sends the dividend out. It's very much making it that simple. And I'll tell you, I wasn't sure whether we ever wanted a native like rest of wallet app that independently talked to signer. But I've got to tell you, like, especially like my iPad and my iPhone, and I'm sitting there on the web browser and the cloud wallet on the iPad and pressed a button and my phone's just asking for basically a signature confirmation. One of the things I worry about is this stuff looks too easy to be as secure as it is. It is much more secure than basically anything else out there.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. It definitely enhances that user experience and brings it back to their own device. And I know you're a big advocate for that as well, is why go out and buy a specific hardware device when everybody has an iPhone sitting around or soon an Android as well.
Well, and look, as someone who was on the Ledger leak, I don't necessarily want the supply chain to haunt me for buying a crypto specific device. The nice thing about, iOS, you could buy a 4-year-old iPad mini and have a really killer signing device. And there's no way that anyone could possibly have known that that was what you're going to go use it for. And just for like the geeks here, you buy it, you update it, you get the current Chia Signer app, and then you take it offline. Now, where we're going is the fact that your phone might also have a warm wallet on it, but it's aware of that iPad as well. And so for like your cold wallet spins, it'll come to your phone and it'll QR code back and forth with your iPad in a way that like the iPad never goes online ever again. So like we're really heading to really cool places. And by the way, Android 2, just not just yet on Chia Signer. Now, Android is fully supported using passkeys. So if you've got a secure passkey set up on your Android phone, or you're using your Android phone as a passkey, both of those are fully working today and fully relevant.
And to that point, if anybody does run into any issues with specific combinations of devices, let us know. We're keeping track of all that. There's a lot of permutations. Now, we've been talking a lot about vaults, about passkeys, about the Chia signer, and this is one of the, probably the core feature, one of the biggest features in the cloud wallet today. But what are some of the other key features that are already included?
Well, so one of the key pieces is that clawbacks are there. Now, we don't yet have user-facing clawback where you can say, "Hey, I want a typo clawback," or "I want a security clawback on all my spends." But like the recovery key itself has a clawback. So basically, what it's saying is it can be clawed back by the primary key during that window. And when we launch ACH here real soon, we're going to be using clawbacks there, where we're basically go ahead and put the funds in your wallet, but there's a clawback in favor of us until your ACH clears, at which point we actually push it into your wallet. So, all of that is kind of hiding in the background and coming forward to the user interface. And the interesting thing for us is a lot of the actual work now isn't the actual core code to do this stuff. It's how do we enhance the user interface so it makes it simple for normal people to figure out what the heck we're talking about.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. Focusing a lot on that end user, and that's something I've always enjoyed about working here is
Yeah,
that
and before
focus.
we go too much further, I forgot one thing. Watchtower is key, and this is the reason it makes so much sense. We expect you to be lazy. We should assume you're lazy. Like that's the right answer. You want a robot out there watching the chain for events that are important to you, like recovery. But there are others. There are, deeper reorgs. If you're a trader, there's a whole bunch of things that Watchtower is going to enable that really make, again, this a very easy to use and a thing you'd use day to day. And I think that's the key piece is, when we can get you into this very highly secure environment, and at some point we should talk about how there are no passwords in the cloud wallet at all. Uh, and you use it all the time, it doesn't rot. It becomes very easy to use. You know what's going on. And, we think this is at the beginning of taking that to a whole lot more applications, even beyond securing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to that point, as we've mentioned, this is the early release version of the Chia Cloud Wallet. Right now, everything's free tier feature, and that's what people have access to. But you've alluded to a couple other features that are in the pipeline that'll also go into the free tier. Do you mind covering a few of those?
Yeah, so certainly we're going to be adding things like NFTs, obviously. Also OAuth. Backing up, Wallet Connect is a thing, but it's kind of a, I don't know, Rube Goldbergian device. And instead, what we're really excited about is just using OAuth the way OAuth is supposed to be, so sites like Dexy and others can OAuth into your Cloud Wallet account, and it just works. And it's got so many less touch points, and it's such a better supported standard. So, we're making it so that everybody else in the ecosystem really doesn't have to worry about onboarding XCH, managing your wallet. It's literally just you OAuth them in using your passkey, and then they've got access to do what you need them to do. And it makes it really nice from a user interface perspective. We're certainly be adding Android Signer for everyone. That's not yet scheduled because we're actually out, hopefully bringing somebody on board here very shortly. And that's going to be a big upgrade to what you can do. Uh, some of the like multi-device support, it's not clear yet whether that's going to go to the free tier or not. It may be that if you want some of that, you're going to have a, prosumer-friendly price point for that. We have not set pricing yet. A lot of the more sophisticated stuff is a kind of, if you need to ask, you probably have to call, because it is targeted at the world's largest asset managers, the world's largest commercial banks. So, the other features, you should expect, obviously there's strong offer support today. We'll add NFT offer support as well. The other things a little bit more cloudy on whether they're going to be in the free tier or not, but some of the basic things like basic market making. So things like being able to do a dividend reinvestment strategy because you just got your secure the bag of your Microsoft dividend. Those are the things you're also going to see, make it into that for everybody. So all of a sudden, if you want to make a daily Spacebucks buy, you just can.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And I know you mentioned, like M of N signing, there are going to be some other features that go into the pro and the enterprise tiers. Do you have an idea as to a couple other things that might be in there? Give some tidbits.
Well, so on the enterprise side, there's both multi-device support. So the idea being that your primary mobile phone that you carry day to day is aware of and may use its SE, secure element, for your immediate warmer or hotter transactions that you're trying to do today. But then if you get a request for, moving something out of your cold wallet, that requires you to go get your other device that's offline, only communicate using, frankly, the screen and the camera, and be able to sign that offline and have inspected it online on your phone to make sure that you really are signing what you think you're signing. So it's, those kinds of things. It is, as I said, very much process and workflow automation. It is, hey, it's it's time to send the dividend out. The controller or the person in ops has reviewed it, uploaded it. You need to inspect it. You get notified. It's time to sign it. You go, okay, send me the signature notification. I double check it again, and now I just hit sign on my iPhone, and it just works. There are some more advanced things. I think we're going to have a pretty strong market making suite effectively in the more enterprise classes where, you don't really have to think about expiry and the management of that. You can have a bot watching over your shoulder, canceling any of the longer expiry offers that you've made if there was a more than X% price move in the asset that you're paying attention to. So, it's these kinds of things. And then there, you really start to care about finality in a way that most end users don't. So, if you're going to use higher frequency. I don't want to call it high frequency because that's going to be done in state channels pretty soon. But the whole idea being that if you think you're settled out right now because it's been about a minute, but we got a deep reorg, and about 2, 3 minutes is your maximum transaction time deep reorg. The actual overall time can be wider, but we're going to be able to do things like it's pretty easy for us to predict that we're in that kind of situation, and you've got to be a little careful about whether those transactions you think are permanent yet. So normally 2.5 minutes and you're done. But sometimes you want to be aware that like that's a little bit more, and that watchtower may be alerting you of that too. So you may be getting a push notification or an email that says, "Hey, we're detecting you may get a reorg. If you've got a real-time transaction, you need to potentially wait a moment." Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's one of the coolest features is that watchtower, and it's something you don't really see in too many other ecosystems because, like you say, it could be for reorgs, it could be when you're doing a recovery, and I know we have a couple other things planned in that mind as well.
Yeah, and look, we're going to generalize this. So you can have things where it's like, look, if anything relevant to this asset happens, so this NFT gets a spend request and it's got a clawback on it, you're going to want a warning about that. And also Watchtowers can probably do some things like, price movement alerts, those kinds of things that you can add in because we've got all of that data anyway, and it really gets you the ability to start longer term even kicking off like a workflow that goes, hey, the price moved and therefore it's down. Spacebucks is down 5%. People are stupid. Let me buy that.
Mhm,
And you might literally automate, generating the offer and having that pushed out to you going, this is your, Spacebucks is too cheap alert, and here's the signature request. If you sign it, I'll submit it.
mhm. Absolutely, definitely a powerful feature there for sure. Now, with Watchtower there, and it's alerting you throughout these periods, one of the key things that it'll alert you to right now is the recovery process. And do you mind diving into why recovery is so important and how it's currently available within the free tier?
Yeah. So the key thing about recovery is that we've separated the ability to spend immediately from recovery. In the past, if you had 24 words for Bitcoin and you like gave them to your lawyer or your ex-wife, you're trusting them to not just take your money because those keys are keys to the kingdom. Instead, now with a recovery key and a you set it period of time during which it will take for the recovery key to become effective and put a new main signer in, now you don't have to have the same level of trust. You aren't worried that, your lawyer is tempted because if he does, well, then you just go into Cloud Wallet and you sign a new transaction that removes that recovery key and stops the recovery completely. And ultimately, you can have multiple recovery keys. So you can have, as I said, you might have your 90-day one that's in your will, and you expect nobody's really going to tamper with your will. But that way, if somebody does, you've got a while to be able to go cancel that transaction. You might have your shorter term one just because you're worried you'll forget. Or one of the things we're looking forward to doing is, especially in the Apple ecosystem, if you have advanced data protection turned on, we're likely to start putting your recovery key as a BLS key in your ADP iCloud private folder for the Chia Signer app. And so, like, you can imagine an environment where when you upgrade your iPhone, Chia Signer is smart enough to basically go, oh, I need to create a new key here in the secure element, and I can see the recovery BLS key, and I'll just kick it off for you right there and on your, new iPhone on experience.
Absolutely, that's great. And just to draw the distinction here between what you get within the Chia Cloud Wallet and also what you get within the reference client currently, one of those big things is what you're discussing now. But do you mind diving into how vaults power that multi-key setup?
Yeah, so a vault is a wallet on chain is one way to think about it. It is a programmable wallet on chain. Basically, the rules of how you spend that wallet are kind of infinitely programmable. So what we're doing is, going after the first kind of use cases that make the most sense and adding a lot of the richer use cases as we go. Uh, in your regular wallet, you just have a private key and it knows, and you can use your wallet to enumerate all of the public keys and see, okay, these are my assets. The vault is actually like an account. The assets are in the NFT. A vault is actually an NFT. It's also actually a DID. We'll slide that to the side for those who are interested for later. But because you have these rules, you can also update them. So, if today you've got a simple signer set up where it's like I've got a 12-hour key and I've got my main signer. As we add new features, you're going to be able to say, hey, I was on Android, so I didn't use Chia Signer, but now I'd like to switch from passkeys to Chia Signer on Android. I can just do that. And you'll go on chain and you'll make a single transaction, and now your reconfigured vault is sitting there with your assets in it and your new signer allocated to it. So, if you lose your hardware device, you now have a path back. One important thing, when you're using passkeys, please use two passkeys, because if you lose one, you can get locked out of Cloud Wallet. Now, you're not technically locked out of your funds, but it can be a pain in the ass to get to your funds if you get locked out. That's the best way to put it. But so the downloadable wallet and even Sage, is relying on local storage of a secure private key. And that's not the greatest. If your computer's compromised, the next line of defense is that your key isn't on your computer. And so if you get a spurious, signature request, you can kind of see using your phone or an iPad or whatever that I don't want to buy that. No. And, go like reformat your computer. And at no point did you lose your private key. So it's really like taking the private key and making it a much less risky, much more configurable thing that you can actually have much more security over while not losing immediacy. You can go right now and sign something because you can buy that NFT because it's a great deal and I don't want to wait all this time to go get it. And that's one of the features we do expect is you may have a situation where you might have two signers, and with one signer, the clawback is like 2 hours. But if two sign it, the clawback is zero. And that lets you have that immediacy with even more kind of a security scalability.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure some of the watchers here and listeners can start seeing how the Chia custody solution fits perfectly within what we're building for the Chia Cloud Wallet as well.
That's right.
I want to do a quick reset of the room. If anybody is watching this and curious, how do I get my hands on the Chia Cloud Wallet? Go to vault.chia.net and you can go ahead and set up your account, set up your first vault today for free. If you have any questions for us within the Q&A here, feel free to use the Zoom Q&A, or we also have the Discord community feedback channel as well as YouTube available for asking questions. If you see me turning to the side, that's what I'm checking is the other stuff there. That all being said, when somebody goes in and they create their vault for the first time and they start seeing that, hey, they can send transactions, they can do some offer files, what is one of the core features that you want people to test out while we're in this early release phase?
Well, I think one of them already happened. The mayor of an abandoned land actually posted his recovery key on Twitter. And it really is a powerful statement. Now, he said it to 7 days. Don't do this short term because you could absolutely lose what's in that wallet. But it's a really interesting point that all of a sudden those 24 words are just not risky anymore. It's almost worth not even trying to attack that because you're just gonna get keyed out. And now he's got new 24 words. So I think it's just a really powerful point that you really have control of your funds in a way you can't lose them. It's now a much more tractable problem to make sure you have a backup, to make sure that like you're just not worried about storing things and self-custody them. And it's an extremely powerful point. We're watching paper Bitcoin get created over in other places. People are like, well, it's easier to buy on DTC public security rails Bitcoin than hold it myself. Well, here on Chia, it's like you can hold your Microsoft dividend certificate just using your phone and a couple paper keys, and you're really, really secure. And especially against loss in yourself. It used to be like, you're worried about fire. Well, now it's like, well, hand it to somebody else and that you somewhat trust. And if they cheat, well, make it a 7 day clawback period and great. You see them cheat, you hit the button, you call them up and go, dude, am I calling 911 or what? So it's just a completely different paradigm. It's really that like there's no password. We don't have your passwords. The passwords breach. I want to say I think passkeys may take a little getting used to because I think even the ecosystem around passkeys is just maturing right now. One of the things people will start to experience is that like you have to kind of figure out where the root of your passkey is. Is it in iCloud? Is it in my password manager? Is it in my YubiKey? But by the way, it can be any of those. And for those of you in the Apple ecosystem, turning on advanced data protection using two YubiKeys on iCloud and then using iCloud passkeys is an extremely secure solution. Not even Apple, not even third-party intelligence agencies can really beat that solution in any way. And then you're relying on Apple fundamentally as your backup because you can always come back and grab that key again. It's pretty powerful capability.
Most certainly, most certainly. And like you said, it's a whole different user experience that people have to get used to. Now, one thing you touched on is the variety of permutations that you can use for where you're accessing the cloud wallet, what device holds your passkeys. And we've seen a couple of times, like we have Atheniel and Discord mentioning Graphene OS has issues.
Yep.
So, what is it that our team is doing to help support the variety of these permutations?
Yeah, one of the things we want to be is aware of where the passkey came from, and we've just figured out how to do that pretty well. Any of these permutations that aren't working, first we need to debug them to make sure they're not client-side issues because we found a lot of those are actually client-side issues. But it would not surprise me if there are certain edge cases that we'll have to take a look at. So it's really just getting a bug report on, what you did and how you did it, and let us go, look back and do that. Part of the reason for this open access, before full launch, for the way it is a real general available product, was that only, inside we could only have so many different kind of permutations of this. And we had plenty. I mean, there's a lot of different, Windows, Linux, Mac, uses, different versions. But until you get out there in the wild, you're not going to see some of the more edge cases to make sure those passkeys do work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, and I know we have a nice matrix trying to cover all these. So, as mentioned, if anybody runs into issues, feel free to let us know and we will definitely take a deeper look into it. And touching on the point you just mentioned, what does early release mean for us and why is this not a full product launch?
So we first of all, I think I'll say it this way: your funds are safe. What the problems we have right now is there are situations and edge cases where we could make it so you can't get to your funds right the heck now. You're not going to lose them. It's a bug. We'll fix it. But I wanted to make sure that we got out there and started iterating in public and getting the much broader OS, the much broader mobile phone exposure to go find those things today. Also, it's hard to really put what I'd call real public load on something without using the real public. So, and I would say that this is a minimum of all product. Offers and cats gets you a heck of a lot of things. But like I want NFTs in there. I want OAuth working. So it's some of those things that are going to be very fast followers, ACH as well in a fast follow category, ACH to buy XCH to be clear, that we're coming very, very soon, that fundamentally like I was poking at last night. It looks pretty darn cool. I'll just say it that way. But my point is that we are going to, once we get to what I would call much more wallet parity with the downloadable wallet, put a lot more wood behind the grain of this product is completely ready for prime time. And look, the Permuto timeline, Permuto is kind of white labeling this as the Permuto application, which obviously has some more things to it beyond, but it needs the core functionality. And, that's a weeks away kind of thing that is needed. So you can imagine we are making sure that it's all ready for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, we are getting near the end of the questions that we had throughout our various channels. If anybody does have a question, feel free to post it in the Zoom Q&A, in Discord, or in YouTube. Otherwise, Gene, I'm just going to chat your ear off a little bit more about the Chia Cloud Wallet and some of the cool stuff that we've already seen done with it, whether it be the free tier, the pro tier, or something else. As you mentioned, you've been messing around with the ACH feature. Is there any other cool features that you've tested that you want to present today or discuss?
Well, I mean, look, I think a lot of people are interested in ACH to XCH, and I think that's going to be a great solution for folks in the United States. Most folks elsewhere have pretty good options, and the key thing for us is really making it just easy, both for like people who want to buy a Bermudo stock, or people who want to, and very soon play state channel gaming. Our version of Wordle, our California poker. We've been playing that internally, and that's a lot of fun. Actually, it's a bit different than Hold'em, but in a way that's pretty fascinating and isn't actually clear yet how best to play. So there's a lot of things that are percolating inside that are about to see the light of day, and we're really excited to be able to use the cloud wallet as a core jumping off point to solve, onboard, to solve custody, so that, if you're Solomon's Lot and you want to make things just that much easier, you don't have to worry about how do people get XCH to buy a DAC. These things need to be not a problem. That's where OAuth is so powerful.
Most certainly, most certainly. We do have a question in Zoom, and I feel like I can answer this one because I just did this today, actually. The question is, has anyone tested the cloud wallet with a hardware token like a YubiKey? I personally created a vault with a YubiKey today, so that does work. And you should also be able to secure your sign-in with that YubiKey also.
Also, for those who don't know, Ledger has a YubiKey equivalent mode, so you can actually use your Ledger if you wanted to as a passkey.
Thank you. And if anybody does run into issues, jump into that Discord support or feel free to reach out to me in Keybase or Twitter, and we can make sure we add it to the list so we can take a deeper dive into it and see
Yeah,
what
and I saw
permutation
some
might be.
people asking questions about, what other hardware devices can be supported. So first of all, today, if it supports passkey infrastructure, it should already be supported. So that gets you a pretty broad swath of stuff. The thing we don't necessarily like about passkeys as signing keys is that it's kind of a blind sign. You can't really be sure that what you're looking at is exactly what you're going to go sign. Moving forward, our first next focus is getting Chia Signer on Android. Because once we have Android and iOS on Chia Signer, we think the secure element in mobile phones is absolutely the number one way to secure your funds. And then the only question is whether that secure element is on an online device or on an offline device. Either way, you want a big screen. You want to be able to actually inspect the transaction. You want to know you're signing what you think you're signing. But we certainly will be adding things like Tangent support, Ledger support more natively and not just using the U2F passkey mode. So, those are down the line, but we think that again, like, only the new Ledger e-ink device starts to get back to where we like it from you really can inspect what you're signing and see a large screen real estate to make sure that your complicated offer file, which is like trading USDC for USDT for a Microsoft dividend certificate, is exactly what you want and not someone spoofing an offer into you.
Thank you very much. Now, we do have a question about a security best practice.
Yep.
And is it okay to have the sign in and the vault key be the same pass key?
It is okay, but we are going to make it so that you can make them different. And I think ultimately, when we do that, I would say that different is probably better there, just because you don't want to have the same attack surface and the man in the middle attempt on both items. You want it to be that you got to get both of the items to actually get in and sign. You know, the login is of some value. Now, it's not total value because if somehow somebody can get you to sign with the signing key, like you're still cooked. But what's great about passkeys is it really is unspoofable about whether or not you're signing at chia.net. And in that way, it makes it very, very hard for account takeover and other things. And that's why passkeys are so much better.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Well, Gene, I think that might be all the questions that we have from the community today. The last thing I want to touch on is a year in review. People started to see the Chia Cloud Wallet go into an open beta last year, and now we're going into a early release phase. What do you see as some of the biggest improvements that have occurred over that last year?
Well, it's really things like offers. It's getting the entire passkey and Chia signer capabilities to be widely available. There was a lot of plumbing work that was a lot more work than I think people would imagine to get here. Now that we're here, though, we had a good sense of all the features we wanted, that we wanted things like multi-vault capabilities, admin capabilities. If you're just logging in as an end user, you're not going to see the enterprise automation, the I like to call it the Justin login, where he's able to allocate different people in the organization for their own Chia Cloud Wallet and Vault. So it's those things that really let us do things like use the Cloud Wallet as Permuto's backend infrastructure as we're issuing trust certificates there. So it's really having that security and having all those capabilities. We're not going to necessarily be making the enterprise features as available in the public soon, but we are planning to make the full feature set available on testnet ultimately, so you can really see what you could do if you were a subscriber to the higher tiers and what those things look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, great place to play around with them and be able to see what those features can do for them.
Yep. Yeah, it's just really rethinking and making using a public blockchain easy or easier than using a bank account.
Hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
and certainly
Absolutely.
more secure.
Yes, I know that getting my SMS from my bank is not the best.
Not at all. There's been an interesting piece of reporting recently that there's one individual that was basically scooping up every single SMS all the time off the entire public wireless switch network. So yeah, that happens.
Yep, yep. And good reason to have better security practices in play.
That's right. You want the thing to be often hardware that you control.
Mhm. Most certainly, most certainly. Well, Gene, I appreciate your time today and all of the insights into the Chia Cloud Wallet. For those of you who joined us today, thank you very much for your time and all of the great questions. If you do have follow-up questions regarding the Chia Cloud Wallet or run into any issues with those permutations of passkeys, feel free to jump into the Discord support. We have some great community moderators as well as Chia staff who are on standby to help out in any regard necessary. Otherwise, feel free to jump on vault.chia.net in order to create your Chia Cloud Wallet account and set up your first vault. Gene, would you like to leave the audience with any thoughts?
Look, I just didn't want to like say that it's really exciting to be delivering a vision we've been talking about for about 18 to 24 months. And it really delivers it in a way that I think is even more convenient and more secure than we originally thought we could do. So it's a pretty powerful new product. It shows you what cryptocurrency can and should be, and that none of the others are. And this is what third generation blockchain technology looks like.
And on that note, thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.